Our show is about bringing the best practices in education to inspire, connect, and empower all educators by providing practical tips that can be used in the everyday school setting.
Welcome to the Catch Me If You Can podcast. My name is Rylee Coteus. I am an NSSEO district coach working with our fabulous member districts around all things education. And I'm joined today by one of my fabulous colleagues, Amie Krummick. Amie, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yay. Hi, Rylee. I'm excited to be here today. I'm Amie Krummick. I'm one of the other NSSEO district coaches, and I work with 4 of our school districts. I work with early childhood all the way through transition age kids, and I work with our teachers, with our students, related services, our admin. We do a ton of professional development. Our job is pretty fun, I would say. We get to do a lot of different things, right?
It is super fun.
I know.
I have never been in a job quite this fun.
With this much variety, right?
For sure. Well, and especially this year. So we're going to get into a little bit. The title of this podcast is Silver Linings of the Dumpster Fire, which was created...
We're going to find them.
Exactly. Was created by our other colleague, Beth Mand, another NSSEO district coach. And so we'll get into all of the ins and outs, but I thought maybe we could just spend a hot second here just talking about what coaching is, how we do it in our professional learning department. And you've been coaching for 10 years?
This is my 10th year at NSSEO, yes.
So I thought, who better to kind of explain what coaching is than our resident expert, Amie Krummick.
Wow. So what is coaching?
Yeah.
I mean, I think our coaching looks like a lot of different things, right?
For sure.
So I think that's why our coaching is supporting our students. Sometimes we do direct support with students, direct work with our students so that we can model and work with our teams on this is how you do it. Is this what you were thinking? And we troubleshoot and problem solve with them. And then it's kind of like an I do, we do, you do kind of handoff. Sometimes our coaching looks like working with teachers and just problem solving and troubleshooting with them and working through cases. And we have a lot of our frameworks and templates that we follow to do that. And sometimes our coaching looks like supporting our related services people, modeling and working with them, getting their feedback and input, and then working with admin as well. And then our coaching is also kind of takes off in our professional development that we do. We hope that some of those big PD trainings that we're doing, that kind of kicks off some of the big ideas and things we want to work on in our coaching. And that sets the stage for the time that we spend in our district.
So we have quite a few different districts. And I know Amie and I get to work in at least one together, which is always fun. We like to have multiple coaches in different districts because we all have, I call them my TED Talks that I do all the time of like, here are my TED Talks. Here are my TED Talks. Here are my big sticking points. Here's what I really, really care about. And so that's going to lead us into our values discussion a little bit later as well about what we really want to embody as coaches, what we feel like is really something that we bring and really the value that we bring maybe to our member districts. Do you kind of ever get that sense that you're like, this is what I'm really, really into and this is what I'm going to work on my districts with?
Areas that we're really interested in, feel strongest in? Absolutely. And I think that's one of the really cool parts about our team is that we all have different areas that we feel strongest in and that we feel we can support and empower other people that we're working within. And then we rely on each other as a coaching team. If there's something that I don't feel super confident in, or I want to problem solve with one of you guys, I pull you in like I did yesterday.
Definitely.
Pull you in on a case and we kind of troubleshoot through that. So yes, absolutely. There are areas that we feel stronger in that we want to share all of that knowledge and those skills with the teams that we work with.
So just to give a little background on how this little podcast even came to be, our fearless leader, Stacey Colgan, who is our professional learning coordinator, she loves all things Brené Brown, loves podcasts.
Wait, are you sure? Wait, she does? I didn't know that.
We've never heard that before from her. As I'm staring at Dare to Lead on her bookshelf right now. And Brené Brown, I think, launched her podcast a year ago. So as we're recording this, and she was like, Rylee, I really want to do a podcast. I'm like, well, that sounds fun. I don't know how to do a podcast. But I think a big thing was we all have things we feel really passionate about. And especially this year, we've been given maybe a little bit more free reign to explore some of those things in our own professional learning. And so we were talking about how do we get little snippets of that to other people? How do we take one of our 3-hour trainings, our half-hour trainings, or professional learning opportunities and condense it down to here are your big Spark Notes versions?
No, I think we've had to do that a lot. I think we've had to think differently about how we support and work with our teams. One, because all of our teams that are out in our member districts too, their time is really precious and they have less time to maybe delve into their own PD because they are working so hard to figure new things out to keep up with the way the learning model is changing. Are they remote? Are they hybrid? Are they face-to-face? Who's coming? Who's not? And how that looks. And so I think we've had to adjust that. And that's been a challenge. I think I speak for myself, but maybe for our team as well.
You can speak for me right now. I feel pretty confident.
That we have felt that that's a little bit of a challenge, but it's also, I think, brought out some of the best parts of our trainings that we do. So that we do, you're exactly right. Like we have these half-day trainings and you're thinking, what is really the meat of this and what do I want everybody to walk away with? And we only have 45 minutes to do it in with a team. That's been kind of fun to figure out, right?
Right. We talk a little bit about like our must-dos and our can-dos. What are our must-dos? What are the things that we need people to walk away with to make sure that they're giving quality education to our students, not just in special education, but general education as well. So I think that's been a lot of fun, at least for us. I think we're just huge nerds as well, but it's been really fun to pick out those things of what are the big topics we really want people to walk away with.
The big topics, and then what could they realistically wake up tomorrow morning and say, oh, you know what? I heard a little bit about this from Rylee or Beth or Amie or whomever, Christy, and I want to put this into place today. I'm going to try it. You know, what are the easy things they could pick up and listen and learn about and then bring to their classrooms the next day, whether that's working with parents or kids or in a meeting or however that looks. And so that has been fun to think about that more deeply for us, I think, and then focus and streamline what we're doing with our teams more.
Yeah, we've had to shift, and I feel like anytime I say pivot, I just think of that Friends episode.
Yeah, with the couch. Pivot.
With the couch, we're pivoting. But we've had to do so much of that, and it's been... We're going to talk about Zoom being a blessing and a curse, but this kind of pivoting has been a blessing and a curse. We have to be more
intentional.
Intentional?
That's my word, which I know we're going to talk about later, but that's what I think of, right?
Correct. We have to be more intentional in all things. We're just previewing all of the topics that we're going to talk about. And you had mentioned being intentional is huge, and that's your word for the year. And we'll talk about my word for the year. But with that intentionality, there's this thing that we talked about a lot. And so this is a snippet that we wanted to give to our listeners is this year we have been trying to embody taking a B. And a little background, I actually have the article that I printed out and there's an amazing YouTube video. So Dr. Allison is a licensed clinical psychologist and she has a website, drallisonanswers.com, and we can put it in the show notes. And she has this article called The Best Life Advice I've Ever Gotten. And it's all about how one of her supervisors once told her, Allison, you've got to learn how to take a B. You can't get an A in absolutely everything in your life. And we've been trying to embody that so much because as coaches, as humans, we like to get A's. We're trying to do that for us and our students, but sometimes you just got to take a B.
I know. And I love that. I listened to that too. And I've read it too. And she's got a lot of good stuff on there.
She really does.
It's a great resource for people to tap into. And they're really short, nice, like 10-minute things. But I did listen to that one. It was funny because I think her professor actually told her there are some things you need to take a C in. And she's like, whoa. She's like, wait, I don't want a C. But I'm okay with a B. Like I could take a B. And I felt like that too, because you do want to adjust. Well, I don't know if I want to be a C level with some things, but I'm okay with a B. That's close enough, but not too far from where I want to be. And I thought one of the big ideas I loved that she talked about was you don't know what life's going to throw at you, but you can control how you respond or what you're going to do in response to that. And that's that reflection and think, okay, what are the things I want to be like A level at? I'm going to bring it. I'm going to be up here with work this week or thinking about it. I'm going to be up here with my workouts, but you know what, a B level, I'm not going to do any reading this week. I'm done with reading. My house is going to take a B for sure. And that's okay. When I listen to that, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, I need to get better at that. And I've been trying to do that all year long too, especially since we've been home. People have been home a lot. Then we're back at work, then we're home. It's like trying to shift and adjust. Some weeks you're better at other things and you have to learn how to let things go.
I would say most of the time my house gets a C. And I'm like, that's fine.
I can see my house being definitely a C.
Right?
Sure.
I'm like,
B on some weeks.
I'm not even shooting for the B at this point. I'm good with C and everything's going to be fine around that. Obviously, you said it so eloquently, but it is definitely this collective, I've heard the term collective trauma of this pandemic being thrown around a lot. And it made me just think a lot about, okay, what as a result of this pandemic, especially, and all of the changes and the pivoting that we have to do, what do I really need to break down and take a B on? So before I might be able to say, okay, at work, I'm getting an A. And this year I've really had to break it down of like, okay, responding to emails within 24 hours. I'm going to get an A in that, but maybe my coaching log is going to be a day late. So I'm going to take a B in that. So I even had to break it down and kind of task analyze a little bit more of my A's and B's.
Oh, yeah. I think at work, and I think about all the teachers that we've been working with too, and how they have some students at home, they have some students at school, and they have some students, some are coming to pick up materials, some aren't, and they are struggling with, okay, like I'm trying to meet everybody's needs and I don't think I'm doing a great job with it. And we've had some conversations about not that any of our students deserve that B, but you might have a time where you're like, you know what, I'm really doing my best, but I'm going to be a B here. And these other kids, I'm like doing a great job. I'm killing it with these guys. They're going to be A level. I'm doing my best. I'm winning. And it might shift a little bit, and that's okay. But it is frustrating. It's hard when I think as educators, and I speak for a lot of the teachers that I've seen, that I think everybody wants to be an A all the time.
We strive for that A. As teachers and educators and related service providers, all of the people that we work with, everybody is striving to get that A in absolutely everything all the time. And it's hard to accept that if you go for that A in everything, you might end up with an F in some things. And that's even worse than if you intentionally say, I'm going to take a B in this specific thing.
So Dr. Allison talked about that. She said, I thought it was really interesting. She talked about more like reflecting on, okay, what are those things that you have going on right now? And she suggested writing them out. And I have to admit, I don't think I've ever really written them out. I kind of have that mental list, but thinking more deeply about it, like what are those things going on this week? Okay. And what am I going to be okay with taking a B in, and what could I take an A in? Because she had a great point, just like you said, if you don't do that, chances are you're going to kind of just get burnt out and push too hard. And then you're going to be getting Fs in things that you really would have been okay getting Bs in. Then what happens? Then you get down on yourself. Maybe you're worn out. You're just exhausted. You're mad at yourself. You're resentful to other people or other things. And you don't want that to happen. So just to kind of think ahead and plan more for that. And I thought that was a great point. That awareness, that
intentionality of I'm going to take
that word again.
There it is. It's like it should be all of our words for the year. But I'm going to make this choice for myself. She talked about that too, of the world will make its choice for you.
Yeah, that's right.
And you might get that F, or you can make the choice and it can be in your control that I am going to send out. I know I work with a lot of teachers that want everything to look so cute and put together and polished. And I am much the same way, where I'm like, I want the font to look this way. I want it to be this. And rather than that newsletter to parents and that communication, not even going out and taking an F because I've spent too much time or I haven't prioritized or anything like that, I can take a B, send it out with Times New Roman, even though it makes me cringe, and know that communication is still getting out, just for example.
No, that's a good example. Yeah. And those are some of those smaller things that you can let go and be okay with a B, and then focus your energy on all those other things that you want to max out at and get an A in.
Exactly.
Who's doing this grading anyways?
You let me know when you figure out who is actually grading us.
Yeah, and I think part of that is just learning grace is another word that I think of when we talk about this year, right? And I know we're going to talk about it more, but just handling things with grace and being okay with it.
Well, and two, I love that you brought that up, not just because that's my word for the year, but also how we can extend that taking a B to our students as well. We focused a lot on our teachers, our educators. Our students are going to have to take a B for some of these things as well. So like how interesting to think about, what am I as an adult going to say, it's okay to take a B for this student, maybe the relief that they might feel or how much more comfortable they might feel in this crazy school year. To just hear that from an adult in their life. That might
bring a big sense of relief for them. Yeah, so not only coaching ourselves through that then, how to take a B, but how do we model that for our students and for other staff, like for our colleagues? And then how do you encourage and support them in making those decisions and honoring that when our students are like, you know what, I thinking, you know, I couldn't do this assignment, or I didn't get this in time, or I didn't do as great in this group project. And that's okay. I'm going to take a B on it because I'm working really hard on something else this week or next week.
Or I know some of the sports are coming back a little bit more. And so, okay, maybe I want to be a really great baseball player this week. And I'm not saying that education is not important, but maybe it means that that student reads for 10 minutes less. Right. And that's okay because they want to spend those extra 10 minutes being a really great baseball player or whatever it is that really aligns to their values. And so I was thinking a little bit about that is how do we extend that to
our students?
Yeah, to our students.
And especially as more opportunities like sports and clubs and other things are starting to open up more, and our kids have been missing out on that. So how do we as educators, that makes me think, like reflect on how can we in the schools take a B on other things so kids can participate and be part of those other things to get that social piece that they've been missing. To me, it makes sense to just reflect on that as educators and when we're working with kids, and how do we balance our expectations so that kids, like you were saying, feel that sense of relief, like I don't have that assignment to do, or oh, you know what, it is okay if I go hang out with my friends or go to baseball practice or whatever it is, and not stress out about some school stuff right now.
We had to shake up so many things as a result of this pandemic.
Yeah.
And some of that is that we have to shift a little bit of what are our priorities right now. We talked so much about school boards and the reopening plans and all of those changes. And that was such a hot topic for so long. And now that a lot of our school districts are reopening in person because it's safer to do so, we've had so many people doing campaigns for vaccines and getting vaccinated. So this is really our opportunity to think about what are the other opportunities we're giving our students to re-engage in their social circles, in their sports, their extracurriculars, all of that? And where do academics line up?
We have a good 7 or 8 weeks left with our kids. So there is a lot of intensive teaching that we can give them since they've missed out on some of that. Some of our kids, if they haven't been face-to-face or it's looked different, or even the face-to-face kids, let's be real, school looks different.
Let's face it.
Right. I was going to say that and then I changed it. Let's face it for our face-to-face kids. Or you know what I heard when I listened to a podcast a while ago, they were talking about like Zoomies and Roomies.
Yes.
So like the Roomies are the kids that are there. The Zoomies are the kids that are doing live streaming. And I think, just to think about how we're thinking about it differently and just being more flexible, right? So academics are still important, but how do we start to encourage and support our kids in being more social because they have missed that? I talk to kids too at the middle school, like I go to these classes, but I don't really know anybody because I've only been seeing them on Zoom for the last 4 or 5 months. And
I've only been seeing half their face. I
kind of know them, but I kind of don't. And I'm not with my friends in class, so they're kind of new friends, but I don't really know them. They haven't had a chance really to connect with those other kids. So I don't know. That is tricky.
Yeah. We would love to have all the answers to all of the world's problems.
We would. We
Maybe
can't
one
solve
day.
them today.
No, but not today. So you talked about the Zoomies and the Roomies. I love that. I've been in a lot of classrooms where they have different nicknames. You have your A days and your B days, and then you have your Zoomies and your Roomies. And so one did all different types of potatoes. And I just thought that was amazing. She had her French fries were her A day Zoomies. And then she had her tater tots.
For the B days.
Yes.
That's cute.
It was so cute. So thinking about Zoom.
Yes.
Which that has never been a word that I've said as often as this school year.
Even a year ago, we were still like, how do we do this Zoom thing?
What is
it going to look like? How do we do meetings?
What is a Zoom link?
How do we work with teachers? How do we work with kids?
Now we've got a whole new vernacular. We're getting kids into breakout rooms. We're using closed captions. We're writing polls and launching polls in our Zooms. So is it fair to say that Zoom is both a blessing and a curse?
Oh, 100%, I think. I was reflecting on this over the last few days before I knew we were going to talk today. And I was thinking, I'm thankful for Zoom and Google Meets and things like that because I think it's allowed us as educators to actually keep our jobs. I mean, without some of these tools, what would we be doing? So I'm thinking, oh, we're so lucky to have it. But at the same time, I guess there's so many blessings and there's so many curses to it.
Yes.
But that was the first thing that came to mind is like, I am thankful because we were able to do things from home where some people can't do their jobs from home. As hard as this has been for everybody to figure out, it's a good problem to have.
And shows really the resiliency of our educators to move to a platform and the resiliency of our kids.
Yeah, the kids have worked really hard.
They really have. Let's bring it back to our PL department, professional learning department specifically. We are used to doing in-person professional learning events, make and takes. We get together. We have elbow partners. We have
like a lot of connecting with the participants that we work with, right? Whether it's in small groups groups or pairs, or we do breakout rooms, but they would go and work in different areas, and you'd have that chance to be face to face and see all those little things that you miss on a Zoom.
Right. And now it's breakout rooms where we can pop in as sort of a floating head and say, hey, how's everything going? And on the same token, it has allowed us to keep our jobs. Let's split it up. What are some of the curses of Zoom?
I think one of the hardest things that's been connected to Zoom for me is just meeting a lot more people and having a lot more meetings, cramming a lot more into one day, and then having to shift. So I'm having a meeting on one district, and then we meet to plan for PD for next week, and then I meet with another district. Oh, and then I have a group, and you're constantly like shifting your brain, and it's back to back. So we don't have any of those. I didn't build in any of those like Zoom breaks a lot of times, right?
What's a Zoom break?
Right? I mean, like 10 minutes in between it. So I think, and I'm guessing most educators are the same way. We've crammed a lot more into one day because you don't have to travel or go to a different room, different building.
And now I'm having to shift that a little bit because we are a little bit more in person. And so I tried to tell a superintendent or an assistant superintendent that I would do a 1-hour refresher training before a cognitive coaching all day training. And then I was like, oh no, I have to be in person for both of those things. I have to think about some
Traveling.
of those executive functioning, like go withs. And before we would have little snippets of 10, 15 minutes in between where I'd be driving to my next school, or I'd have to wait and move to another location, something like that. We didn't have that for the longest time. So it's been an adjustment going back.
That has probably been my biggest curse with Zoom, I think. And then right now trying to shift and rethink how my day is going to look is different. I did the same thing. I planned a training before that cognitive coaching and realized I had to be in person for both. And you want to be there for your teams, but you also want to attend the PD. So you just make it work. But I'm sure other people are running into that same problem too.
I think too, having those in-person trainings or even meetings, we talk a lot about body language and assessing a situation and mirroring. And that is hard to do on Zoom.
It's very hard. I think the trainings that we've done, we've had some groups where we felt you could feel the energy through the Zoom. Like, okay, these guys are engaged, they're asking questions. And then sometimes you get a group and you're not feeling that energy. And then you're not sure, is it me? Is it the content? Is it the PD? I didn't set up a good activity. What is it? I can't read them.
Am I on mute?
From a distance, or they're there and then they're gone. And they've got their camera on, camera off. Like, what is it? Is it me? I don't know. Did I do something wrong? It's hard to gauge that through Zoom. And then the other thing that I feel like I run into are those quiet times in a Zoom. I feel like having quiet times when you're face to face with someone is awkward enough. But when you're on Zoom, I think a lot of people feel the need to fill in those gaps with conversation. Or are you looking around like, yes, that's true?
I'm looking around. Is that me in a nutshell?
No, but isn't that the awkward thing? Because then you're like, again, you're questioning, is it me? Is it them? Are they thinking? Do they just need a minute? Do they not like what I said? You just don't know. So that complicates it a little bit more.
Which those are things that either I was just not consciously thinking about, and that was just part of my repertoire, that I would be sitting in a room with someone and I could tell, okay, Amie is still engaged with me. She's looking at me. But in a Zoom meeting, Amy's dog might be barking and maybe her kids are stopping in to tell her something. And
there's a lot of distracting things going on. Or is somebody taking notes? How many times do you have two screens? Are you trying to take notes? You want to attend and be visual and use your eyes to show those other people that you're listening, but then you want to like take notes and remember things, whether that's typing or writing things old school in a notebook. And it's like, how do you do that? So just some of those little things to navigate during Zoom have been interesting to figure out. And I have not mastered any of those yet either. I think I'm still trying to figure that out.
I'm not fluent in Zoom quite yet. Still need a lot of help. So some of the blessings though, because there are blessings about Zoom. Besides the fact that we were still able to reach so many educators through our professional learning this year. And some of the pivoting that we did, I think really was best on a Zoom platform. Some of the things that we did and adapted. I'm thinking two of the other coaches and I, Christy and Beth, just did an IEP goal writing series. And that really lent itself to Zoom. We were able to put up examples and send everybody to different websites. And I know personally personally, I got a lot of feedback that, okay, great, this was awesome. And we were able to reach more people just because it was on Zoom. They didn't have to leave their buildings and come to us to do that.
I think that's one of the biggest blessings, right? It's brought a lot of people together across districts, across teams, within districts, across different age levels that maybe people couldn't always attend those trainings in the past.
Yeah, it's easier to hop onto a Zoom call than it is to have to get out of your building and not be able to respond to something and be gone for half a day. So I do like that. We also can record things, which in and of itself is a blessing and a curse, because especially doing this podcast, I've never heard my own voice so much. And now we have all these Zoom recordings and a podcast for me to hear myself.
Yes, I agree. It's not fun to hear yourself on there, but it has been nice when people are attending a training and they have an emergency, something comes up with a student, they have to leave. They can always come back and listen to the rest of it and then feel like they still got the content or the information they wanted to get.
And it matches up the PowerPoint with what we're talking about. I know I've done it before where I'm like, great, I'll send you the slide deck. And that's not the full thing. If we could just send people slide decks and know that that was great professional learning, then it would be different. And it's not. There's a reason that people have to listen to me drone on and on about topics. Just to wrap up Zoom a little bit, I do feel like we could talk forever about the blessings and the curses of Zoom.
I think so too.
One thing that we have had a little bit of fun with are different lipstick colors. And eyebrows.
Or some people, right, I was just going to say, or some people like to add some eyebrows or a little nose or hat on there.
I want to see an entire classroom of kids that are wearing mustaches. That's my personal thing. I think that would be fun. I did sit in on a class where one of the students had her golden retriever just sitting next to her.
Aww.
And he looked so serious about learning. He was like, okay, guys, I'm here. I'm ready to learn. And he was just so stoic. And he sat there for like 10 minutes, just
being a part of the Zoom.
Exactly. So how else is your golden retriever going to be part of your class for 10 minutes?
So that could be one of the blessings or the fun part about Zoom.
I
do think there were some good things about that too, that kids could bring in some things from home, or you got to learn more about kids and families. And that also could be a curse for some people too. And I understand that too. But I think there were some ways that kids could connect with teams and teachers in a ways that they couldn't connect before.
I did a little 30-minute lunch bunch, basically, about how we can use Zoom to our advantage for engagement for students. And one thing that I talked a little bit about, and this lit a light bulb for so many people, and it was so cool to see them. I was encouraging them as a positive reinforcement strategy. So a student did a really good job in a breakout room, and so they get to come back and change their Zoom name to something funny.
Sure,
or they get to put a filter on, or they get to show their cat to the entire class. Some of those things just to have a little bit more engagement, because I know my favorite part of Zooms is seeing my coworkers' animals and their
Animals and kids.
Mostly Christy's dog Captain, which we can also probably put a picture of in the show notes so that you can all see just how adorable he is.
Yeah, and if anything, I think it's also taught us to be flexible, and it's been kind of fun to see, like, we're all the same things are happening at home for people, and we're all trying to do our best and work and the kids do school the best they can.
It is
right?
collective chaos. Yes, right. Collective chaos. We're all in it together. So funny that you mentioned flexibility, because that is one of my values.
Yeah.
We do a lot of values work. I think our fearless leader is a social worker, and so it just lends itself to, we're going to talk about our values and our Enneagrams and some of our words for the year. What do we really want to focus on? And this year was no exception. We came into this year going, what are your values? Have they changed from last year?
Right.
That's always a really interesting way to start off the year.
Yeah, and I think this was, out of all the school years, probably one of the most important years to look at that and reflect on that. And has that changed? And then how do I set myself up for success based on choosing those words that I feel like are going to represent what I want to do and be this year, including like the things I'm going to take a B on and the things I'm going to take an A on. And then how do those words reflect that and make it so it's okay?
So we start with a list of 50 words. We either write them down or we kind of circle them on a list. I'm lazy, so I usually just find a list and I circle. I'm like, this sounds like a good job. And I'm going to take a B on coming up with my own words.
Right.
And then we whittle it down to 20 and then 10, 5,
and then 3.
3, which is hard. That is difficult.
And I did not like that process. I'm
No.
going to tell you. I'm not going to lie.
It was a bit aversive.
Part of me was like, you know what? I just know what my words are. I could just tell you what they are. Doing that process now, I've been trying to like get other people that I work with, even my husband, I'm like, you should do this because it's very telling. And I also think you might be surprised with some of the words that come up that you didn't think were going to represent how you're going to feel. But when you have to narrow it down, you're forced to pick those final 3. Then you realize, oh, that's interesting. That's really where I'm at right now.
And we had that conversation about, well, I feel like maybe my work values are different than my personal life values.
Mm-hmm.
And as we were having that discussion, I remember being like, but they're really not.
Mm-hmm.
You're yourself in both the personal arena and your work arena. And it's actually really good to have the same values in both of those things because they are so interconnected.
I think so too. So are you going to tell us what your values are?
Well, yes,
Okay.
Amie, I won't
What
leave
are
you
they?
in suspense for that long. Mine are flexibility,
Got it.
humor.
That's perfect for you.
Big guess there, and connection.
Connection. That's
Yeah.
a good one.
I think my values have stayed the same this year. I have had to think about them a lot more
Mhm.
over this school year. How am I going to be extra flexible, not only with the teams that I'm working with, but with myself and going, okay, I can do this a little bit differently,
Mhm.
or I can empower my teammates to do this a little bit differently. The humor, life is just, we're not here for a long time. We're here for a good time. Let's just
Mhm.
make it fun.
That's been a good one for our whole team, right?
Yes.
I think Stacy had focused on that too, like wanting to bring the fun and humor back into what we're doing, especially this year.
The number of pranks that have
Right.
gone on in our office, because this is also the first year that we have spent so much time in an office.
Right.
Because
We have been all together. And some of us have missed out on that. I haven't been in the office a ton, a little bit less than other people. And so how do we stay connected on doing some of those fun things together and making work fun?
how do you make work fun? You hide clowns for your
I don't know if you want to
coworkers
reveal
to
all
find.
the pranks though, Rylee. That
Probably
might
not.
be a good idea.
Let's just say, well, yeah, hopefully Brad Carter from HR isn't listening to all of the pranks, although he has been
now.
the victim
Mhm.
of some of, at least a few of our pranks. But that humor, how do we laugh? Because sometimes if you don't laugh, you're going to cry about it.
Mhm.
So how do we keep from crying at work? We laugh about it. We have humor.
Bringing the fun back into it.
Exactly. And then you mentioned that you're not in the office quite as much. Connection. Another one of my values is how do I pivot that connection so that I might not get to see you in person?
Mhm.
And for a very long time during the pandemic, we were on lockdown. It was, I'm not seeing anybody. How do I make that connection? And at first, the happy hour on Zoom was fun. Then I, of course, had to go and get pregnant, so I couldn't do happy hour on Zoom anymore. It was just boring Zoom. That was fun in the beginning. And then I had to find new ways of making connections. And so it's been listening to the same podcast as someone else and then talking about it. I talk on the phone with a lot of my friends a lot more than I used to. I used to be a, don't call me, you can text me. That's a text thing.
Mhm.
And yeah, so those are my 3: flexibility, humor, and connection. Are you
Got
going to tell
it.
us yours?
Yeah, sure. So my 3 that I narrowed down for this year were acceptance, achievement, and fun. The acceptance was a big one for me, especially at the beginning of the year. And I feel like that one's held pretty strong. So accepting kind of where I'm at with things. And it's not only about that, but also accepting where the kids are that I'm working with, as well as the staff. So thinking about everybody's in different places with dealing with this pandemic and dealing with what's going on at home and how do we react to COVID and things like that. And then that's led me to accept people's behavior differently,
Mhm.
right? And be okay with that. And that it might not be a reflection on me or something that I'm doing or not doing, but everybody's got a lot of stuff going on and we're all trying to do the best we can. That's kind of my favorite one. Achievement and fun, we talked a little bit about fun already. And achievement is, of course, there, trying to do the best we can. But that goes back to the take a B, trying to learn how to be better about that. But the acceptance was a really big one for me this year.
Yeah, I love how you summarized that as not only acceptance for yourself, but acceptance of other people. When you were saying that, I was singing the You're So Vain song in my head. Well, because I have to remind myself all the time, not everything is about me. I need
And
to.
it feels like sometimes it
It
is,
does.
but it's really not.
It's really not. No one
No.
notices that you wore that same shirt Friday of last week, too.
But I really didn't wear this one.
She
Friday of last
didn't.
week.
It's a very different shirt.
You're right. People are not thinking, most people that we work with and interact with are so worried about themselves and in a good way and trying to do what's right for themselves, trying to do what's right for kids, that it's not always about us. And with that, with our role as coaches has been tricky this year too, because we're used to popping in classes. We're used to connecting with people and just kind of being present in the building and people being more accepting of us. And that's been a hard one to gauge. Are they ready for me to be a coach?
Yes.
Do they want me to come in? Do they not? I know this teacher in this class has a lot going on. I don't really think they need me in there. They don't need this extra body in there, or they're not ready to talk about the things we're going to talk about. So I need to be accepting of that and walk away and check in later.
And also accepting that just right there, you're still a coach. If the people that you are coaching are not necessarily available, that doesn't take away your value as a coach or anything like that. It just means it's a little bit different. It means I might have to shift into consulting a little bit more because that's what someone needs at this moment. It doesn't mean I'm a failure as a coach. And that's something I've had to have a lot of grace with myself around, which is my word for the year. We also choose a word for the year, which if you haven't picked up yet, mine is grace. Amy's is intentional. And so just having that grace for myself that we are all doing this really crazy hard dumpster fire year together.
We are. And as we've talked about today, we're trying to find those silver linings because it has been hard for everybody in different ways.
For sure.
Right?
Yes.
Is there anything you want to say about grace in your word for the year?
As a kind of a call to action, and I'm going to ask you the same thing just based on what we talked about, but as a call to action, I just really encourage all of our listeners, think about how you can give yourself grace, not only today, but throughout the rest of the week. The next few days through your weekend, how can you give yourself grace every day? And even something small. Say, I'm going to give myself grace and I'm going to take that B and it is going to be okay. How about you? What's your call to action?
Well, since my word is intentional, I've had people say, like, well, what does that mean? Why did you pick intentional? And I think I know that I picked it because I wanted to be more clear with myself about what things I want to do and what things I don't want to do. I have said no to some things. And that, although that's a little hard, and then sometimes I see other people on our team say yes to things, and I feel like, oh, I should have said yes. But you know what? But I've been okay with that because then I have been able to maybe take a B with something, and then I really could be an A in other things that I wanted to be. So I've tried to be intentional with like, is this something I can really do and do it well and be proud of, or do I need to take a step back and someone else can do it better? Someone else has got the idea, and I'm okay with that. It's not always a perfect feeling and a perfect way to do it, but I'm working on that. And I would challenge other people to try to think about that too, to be intentional with the things that they want to achieve and the actions and things that are really important to them. And I think it all kind of goes back to taking a B. I feel like this all kind of connects to that, and just setting yourself up for success and to feel good, because that self-care is important. And that's a big part of it.
I love that. And we are actually, here's a little preview for our next episode.
I thought about that.
You are going to hear from Amie and I again next episode. And we're going to be talking to Dr. Kristen Brendel, who has done a stress to resilience series for our organization and then a few of our member districts. She's been a really busy bee here.
For parents and for staff.
Right? For parents, for staff. So we're very excited to have her on our next podcast, just talking about how to relieve some of that stress, work on resilience.
Right. As we're moving into summer, what does that look like for people?
Yes. Right. And I'm very excited because she's going to lead us through at least one practice of mindfulness, which is always a joy. So we are very excited, and we hope you catch us next time on Coach Me If You Can.